Yeah, I've lost one.
He's right there. He's coming.
Okay. Alright. So, the first, meeting this evening is a council workshop to try to wrap up the ARPA allocations and provide the final update. So at the last, I know, I did not see, Christine B on the call. I knew that that individual was traveling back, but they did include a complete request for the amendment. So as you may recall, when the Christine B Foundation in their application that they submitted for consideration to the city council, it was for site planning purposes to expand a nutritional health center. And we came back and said, just the construction costs, the ability to fundraise, et cetera, had been significantly impacted since they had submitted that. They had come back and thought about perhaps asking for expansion of their existing space. The council was not willing to support operating costs, and that is in line with, so some of you were on the council at the time, some of you weren't. The council did not basically support operating costs for virtually any ask. Because it was about making an investment in the future. So Christine B Foundation went back and looked and determined that there were a couple of capital items that would help expand their capacity to serve more individuals. The primary one is a refrigerated van. The estimated cost for that is about $90,000. And that would drastically increase their ability to provide additional meals at greater distances. And then to expand their ability to hold food, if you will, at their existing facility, a couple of really large refrigerators. So I had attached a full copy of the investment of one-time capital that would actually support the expansion of services that are currently available. And representatives are here if you have any other questions about that. I don't know. I guess I
guess my objection to this is the fact that there was a process in place, and there's a grant process in place. And so a lot of people, weren't able to change their grant proposal. They were rejected. And then now here's another organization that got money through that same proposal and they're able to change theirs. I look at the fact that we desperately need housing, and there was another applicant who also asked for $100,000 that just missed the cutoff, design wall housing. And I know they got some money from CDBG, but in talking to them, they're still on the same project and they can put that money to work. What I understand is that $100,000 would finish a third unit. It would also give them the ability to purchase 66 Smith Street, which is an empty lot that the city had just recently removed the abandoned building from. And so they could put 2 units of housing on that. I guess the way I see it is, we're talking, 3 units, not only that, but also finishing what they've got. That's 3 units for $100,000. I'd be supportive of going with the applicant, because that's where the money came from, following that same spirit of they followed the rules, they followed the process. And I just think it's a matter of fairness.
by default, yes, Carol, Councilor Fish.
How does that impact the process? Do we have to, wouldn't it change things up as far as how the process was done and if we kind of change gears altogether?
So there was one prior amendment. So earlier this year, Bangor Symphony Orchestra was allocated money to buy lights, equipment, et cetera, to basically relocate the Bangor Arts Exchange. But it would provide the necessary auxiliary equipment that they needed to be able to put on performances. The council decided to allow that award to remain, and the equipment and items that they're buying will be located at the Cross Insurance Center in lieu of the Bangor Arts Exchange. So that's the only other amendment that they did.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would say I appreciate the Councilor Beck's comments. I think when we looked at these, though, we were really generally, I think it started out looking at the mission, and then it got down to what they wanted for spend the funds on to
Mhm.
accomplish that mission. So I think the mission is the same with this foundation, it's just, it's a different allocation of funds. So even though I personally wasn't a big fan of funding this particular one, I'm okay with changing the allocation because it was the will of a group to fund it, and it really doesn't change the mission, still the same mission, and we're just reallocating it so they can do what their mission is, but, so.
I would agree with Councilor Trumbull. I mean, we had assigned them a certain sum of money, and I understand what Councilor Beck is saying, and I wish we could turn back the time clock, but unfortunately, I don't think we can. I don't want to pull the rug out from underneath this organization that at the time we all agreed we would give them some money.
And I would also say that when you went through that process, one of the steps we took was there an alternate funding source? So Design Wall Housing went over to CDBG because we identified that as being able to access different federal dollars in this case, no different than we did for Bangor Area Homeless Shelter. And I believe there were a couple of more that we referred to CDBG funding.
Is there any objection to moving forward with the Kristen B Foundation?
I mean, other than my objection.
Yeah. Seeing no others, we'll move forward on that.
Yep.
Heel,
Yep, so Peel continues to remain in its temporary closure. And which also has resulted in the closure of the Heart Center. The fourth and final installment of $164,197 had not been released. And I did receive an update this morning as to the unutilized funds from the Heart Center. And that was through November 30th. They closed on November 5th. There were very little expenses towards that tail end. There's $140,000 that they are holding of ARPA money. So it is my recommendation that we go ahead and reallocate 164 that we hadn't released and the 143 that they owe us back for a total of $307,000. So my suggestion is that we terminate the ARPA award with Health Equity Alliance because they're not operating the facility that they had applied for and said they would. And that will result in the reallocation of $307,000 of our federal ARPA money.
We don't see any issue with them paying back the money.
I asked this morning when I didn't have the check.
What was the answer?
I haven't got the
Okay.
answer yet. I will say that part of this also was a van. Because part of the money was used to do a prepaid lease for a 2-year period on the van. I've made the request to have the
And we
van.
can get it,
returned
and
to
they can
us.
put some refrigeration in them.
Well,
and-
we also have, transportation is a significant.
Right.
Actually, we had some transportation, it would serve the same population that
Put
we
the passenger
intended.
van.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, so, yes, both of those asks were made this morning.
Councilor Dean,
I would agree that the money should come back for another purpose, but in this, is there anything about needle pickup or is that a separate?
That's a separate
that.
issue. So, the public health director had been working with, one of the other syringe service providers in the community. And we have the outline of a new, agreement,
Mhm.
that will be coming forward to your GovOps meeting on January 6th. To execute a new agreement to continue to have syringe service. I know that there are very few people, still on staff at Heal, and I know they continue to try to address those as they come up.
And those are opiate funds, not
Yeah.
ARPA funds.
Yes.
Councilor Hawes,
So these monies that are coming back, are they gonna be reallocated to like infrastructure, transportation?
I was gonna say, where's there she is. Yes, yes.
She's smiling.
Yes,
I'll
she's
take that
very
as well.
happy. And that was kind of part of it too, is, the council had previously taken action to allocate money for housing
Mhm.
and infrastructure developments. And I think we gave kind of a brief update at our last meeting to talk about the fact that those council orders do not really meet the definition of an obligation under the federal regulations. So what you will see on the next council meeting is a council order that amends the agreement with the Christine B and updates based on what you just did here this evening, updates the investment piece. You will see a council order that will terminate the ARPA award with Health Equity Alliance that's resulting in $307,000 to be reallocated. And then you are gonna see two council orders that will authorize the execution of interagency agreements. And an interagency agreement is agreement amongst ourselves, but it's an agreement. And basically it creates standing that you have said, this is what it is and there's a contractual obligation. Different than a council order that today you can say, I support this council order. And 2 weeks from now, you can say, you know, I want to rescind that council order. So the agreement is what's creating the obligation. One agreement will be specific for housing and one agreement will be specifically for wastewater infrastructure. I think the housing one is going to be 2,250,000, and I believe the infrastructure one is going to be close to 2 million. And then that will put it in place. We'll have obligations and we'll be in full compliance with the period to obligate federal funds with by the end of December.
Councilor Beck,
Being that we obligated the 307,000 towards substance use disorder, I mean.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on perhaps setting that aside, doing an agreement like you have with the other departments, one with public health, to set the money aside for substance use disorder with public health? So as things come up, we can continue to put those funds still into substance use disorder. But you know, I personally would like to see the allocation stay in the same category.
other questions, comments? Councilor Hawes?
Don't we have other funds that we can use for what he's talking about?
Yeah,
For the
so as
substance
public health
abuse?
works through their comment and public input period for the opioid settlement money. That clearly is a revenue source that was dedicated for substance use, either prevention, treatment, education. Those are kind of the 3 or 4 primary eligible uses for that money.
So we didn't take any of that money to put it anywhere else?
No, the only thing we've used that money for to date is to provide the syringe pickup.
And I certainly understand what Councilor Beck is saying, because sometimes you take money from one place and it never gets put back. However, we do have funds that we can use for that. But the infrastructure has really is in a bad way of needing some help. So it's not gonna be so easy to take money from somewhere else for that.
Correct.
So I would advocate that it stay with the infrastructure.
Other comments? Councilor Beck?
With HEAL not operating, because that's my other concern is, you know, who's doing what they're doing, and are we working to find someone else? Regardless of where the funds come from, I mean, that they just, you know, if they're not doing it, then who will?
So HEAL played multiple roles within the response in our community. The one that we are feeling most critically and we have had to recreate and cobble together is medical case management. For individuals who are positive for HIV. So the good news is that the federal funding that's associated with that, the so-called Ryan White funds, actually flow through Lubec Regional Medical. So the federal funds aren't attached to HEAL. HEAL was the contract. So we always have another party to fall back to. HEAL continues to work through their process for reorganization. I expect to see something this week, but you know, that's what I've been told. I can tell you that the syringe service, other syringe service programs in our community have seen a market increase in that pickup. And the public health director has been in constant contact with them. So we continue to work with all of the partners at our state level, the remaining partners here locally, to make sure that we are minimizing the gaps in service. So for example, testing, Maine Family Planning has stepped up and done some additional mobile testing, which is something that used to occur at Heal as well. So we are piecing it together for now. Not a long-term sustainable plan,
Gotcha. So,
but it'll get us by for the moment.
sure, and so it sounds like, so we're holding on hope that Heal will be able to come back
To
online.
reinvent
And then
as,
if not, then that's when we'll look for more permanent.
correct.
Gotcha, okay.
Hearing no other objections, we'll move forward on
Okay.
the HEAL non-funding.
So one of the funding obligations, and I wrote this ahead of what you're gonna get on B and ED tonight, so I'm gonna go back and just skip over the conversation about Cedar Falls mobile home, because you're gonna have that conversation at B and ED tonight. And the last part of this does roll into sort of the final actions, which are the two interagency agreements. The 2.25 million agreement will be with Community and Economic Development. It'll be to invest in housing initiatives, Grandview Avenue redevelopment, quality housing program, and or limited equity affordable housing cooperatives, or similarly, i.e. $2 million to Granville, potentially $250,000 to Cedar Falls Mobile Home Park for their cooperative purchase. And if you think about it, that's so Cedar Falls Mobile Home is 129 units right now. It has the ability to add, I believe it's got the potential to add another 29 or no, another 49 units. And we're talking about at least 75 units on Grandview Avenue. So 2.25 million to in essence assure and allow for the creation or the retention of 225 units of affordable housing is a pretty good return on your money. The interagency agreement for water quality is gonna be just over $2 million. And, you know, our initial estimates, I don't know if you put that in the memo or not, Amanda, is that, you know, that pump station upgrade could be close to 5 million. That system upgrade could be close to 5 million, because in the end, we don't believe we're gonna need a pump station. We're just gonna reconfigure the system itself. So.
Questions? Seeing none? The workshop?
All right,